Welcome. In After Effects, we're going to learn about how to add 3D to our text. So it's 3D text time. Are you ready for some fun? Let's make our text 3D now. To start out with, let's open up After Effects. And we're going to use the type engine in After Effects, which allows us to extrude text into 3D space. We're going to combine camera and lights to get that feeling of depth. First, we need to create a 3D layer. And so I'm going to go Composition, New Composition. On background colors, I picked blue because that is our color here at the school. And I'm going to say, let's see, I could name this. Let's name it Thunder. We're going to make a big thunder and say OK. And then I'm going to get my text tool and I'm going to type Thunder real big here. And I already pre-selected a green. If you wanted to change your color, make sure you have your text effects showing here, and then just click until you get the green that you want. I'm going to get the Move tool and I'm going to center this a little bit. If your text is not quite large enough, go ahead and select it and increase your size. Now there's a few things we want to do before we get started, and one is you want to make sure that this cube is showing. That's going to make a 3D layer. If that's not showing, come next to the name of your composition, and I have several compositions open here, so mine's over a little bit. Yours might be all the way here to the left. Click on the three lines that look like a hamburger, go up to columns, and make sure that your switches has a check mark next to it. If it does not, go ahead and select that. If I select this again, it will deselect it. Mine is showing, so I'm good to go. Now I'm going to come down here to my Thunder text layer in my timeline, and I'm going to click on the little square. That's my 3D layer. It'll enable, I'm going to click right in the box, actually the little square right on the layer. This has, you'll see it's added, if I twirl this open, in the transform, I have X, Y, and Z. Z is that depth that we're going to use for 3D. But we need to change one more thing. At the very top here on the renderer, yours may say Classic 3D. Click on this and we need to change this to Cinema 4D. It says the Cinema 4D renderer enables extrusion of text and shapes. It is the preferred renderer for extruded 3D work on most computers. Perfect. I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to click on this little wrench to the right of that. And I'm going to take, your quality is probably up here at about 30. We're going to take it down to 1 because this does take a lot of power and we want to make this work. All right, you'll notice that before we changed this to Cinema 4D, the geometry options were grayed out and would not let us select it. Now that we've switched this to Cinema 4D, we can twirl this open and you'll see extrusion depth. We're going to change that from 0 to, let's start with 30 for this example. And you'll be able to change this to whatever value you would like. And then I'm going to open up Transform so that we can see, let's go to our Y, and I'm going to move this rotation over so you can see that this now has thickness. So if I had done this before, this would have been a flat image. You can see it now has some thickness. However, we can't really see much definition when we go sideways, and so we need to add some lights. So I'm going to right click down here in the timeline and I'm going to say New Light. I'm going to call this my point light because this will be my point light, and I'll check the light type to point. I'm going to increase the intensity to about 125 and say OK. And you'll see now I can actually see that depth. And I'm going to move my light around. You can see if I move the light around, it's going to change the intensity. So this is pretty strong. I did put the intensity up. What I need to add now is an ambient light. So I'm going to right click down here in my timeline and say New Light. And I'm going to make an ambient light. Change the light type to ambient. And I'm going to take this intensity down to about 30. This is going to give an overall light in the room so that it's not quite as harsh. There we go. And the ambient light, you don't set a location. You can set the location of your point light. You can see here as I move it around depending where the light source is coming from on the point light, will change the way this looks. So let's see, I accidentally grabbed the text. So decide where you want your light to come from. I'm going to kind of come like it's a sun coming from the upper left-hand quadrant. And if you're having trouble seeing this, you can come down here to your rotation on your y-axis and kind of adjust that a little if you're wanting to see that a little bit differently. Okay, I'm going to close the transform here for a minute, and I want to show you here in the geometry options, you can also change your bevel style. So right now it's set to none. I'm going to click on angular, and depending on how high this level, this number here is, will determine what type of angular. Here, I'm going to scrub it a little so you can see it. You can see here we've got this bevel now that's showing up on angular. So you can also change that to a concave. So that kind of looks a little bit to me like emboss, what I think of as a pillow emboss in Photoshop, and then convex. And so you can kind of play with this and kind of just see how this looks and if it's giving you the look you want or not. You can also go how deep the hole. I had this at 100%, but if you wanted it to not be quite to go all the way through, you can change that here. And then we could change our extrusion depth if we wanted to change that so that it's even deeper than it is. So I'm going to change it from 30 to 50, and you'll see it bumps out a little further. So that's how you're going to change your text to make it look like it's 3D. There's also material options down here. You can play around and give it different looks, and that's just something you need to take time and kind of play with and see what you like. The other thing that's really cool is the animators all work in the 3D as well. So when you come up here and you go to your animate, we can, if we want to separate the letters, we can separate them so that they would come in independently from each other. You just have to enable the per character 3D option here at the top. You can see these have now been separated into individual letters. And then I can come up here to my effects and go to my animation presets that we had done in the previous video. Go down to text, and I think I'd like to play with the 3D text. These are kind of pre-built in. You could also create these on your own, but it's often nice to see what these do and if there's one you like, and then you can edit it. So let's look at 3D flip out rotate X do. Drag and drop it onto your text layer, and then we're going to hit the space bar to play. And this is not going to play in real time. When you render it out, you'll get an idea. So it looks like this one, pretty cool, is letting it drop down like it's falling off of a ledge. So that's a real cool look there. I like that. And you can see that this would happen in about 3 seconds, but in order for the computer to show us what it's looking like, it does go a little bit slower because it takes some time to process. Now I did take the quality of my viewing down to half. I could take it down to a quarter, and that might speed it up a little bit. I can select this animator and delete it. Say I want to try a different one. Let's say I want to try what sounds interesting. Rotate, 3D rotate by character. Let's add that in here and see what that one does. All right, I'm going to back it up to the beginning. I'm going to hit my space bar to play. And this, of course, when it goes faster, is going to be a little more dramatic when you render this out. So it's really cool that this is built into this Cinema 4D renderer. Allows us to create these 3D text that normally you would have to do in a separate program. So it's really nice that this is built in. I want you to experiment with this and see what you can create. Maybe you have a title that you wanted to change in some way, and this might be an option you'd want to use. So thank you for joining me with this 3D text option, and I look forward to working with you on the next video. Bye-bye.